experiment on other dimensions,
monsters,
being
and of course just a government lab. So
Right.
I mean, all those ideas really are still in the DNA of the show and continue to be in.
The people who made the biggest show on the planet weren't even allowed to watch its ending. That is how seriously they took the secrets, and that's just the start. For nearly 10 years, this cast smiled through press tours, dodged spoiler questions, and quietly sat on a mountain of secrets. Some were locked behind brutal contracts. Some were grueling, unglamorous days on set they weren't allowed to talk about, and some they just kept to themselves. Now that the final season is finally out, the truth is spilling, so fair warning, spoilers ahead. These are the secrets the cast of Stranger Things hid until the very end, and a few of them will change how you watch the whole show. Start with a teenager who accidentally cracked a billion-dollar secret. The creators were quietly developing a spin-off set in this universe, locked down so tightly that almost no one knew the premise. Then, with no documents, no leaks, no inside access, Finn Wolfhard simply guessed it correctly. He'd absorbed the show's DNA so completely that he reverse-engineered exactly where the creators wanted to go next. They were reportedly stunned and immediately swore him to total secrecy. So this kid then walked through years of relentless press tours and podcast interviews, sitting on one of the most valuable unreleased ideas in the industry, and never breathed a word. He only got to talk about it as the final season rolled around. And here's how paranoid the security got. The cast, the literal stars of the show, were not allowed to watch the finished finale before it aired. Noah Schnapp said it plainly, "They're not gonna show any of us." Think about that. These actors filmed every scene, but they were never shown how it all got stitched together in the edit. No early screener, no private cast premiere, nothing. The studio was so terrified of a single leak that it didn't even trust the people who made the show. The cast then had to keep their own ignorance quiet, nodding along in interviews about an ending they hadn't actually seen yet. They hid an entire villain in plain sight. When a sci-fi legend, Linda Hamilton, was announced for the final season, her role was fiercely protected. Leaked cast lists literally redacted her character's name. Fans went wild guessing she was a grown-up 11 or some new supernatural force. The truth was more grounded and more dangerous. She plays the leader of a ruthless human mercenary unit, nicknamed the Wolfpack, with one mission: hunt down 11. The costume team quietly built 3 separate military looks just to keep it all straight. So the heroes spend the finale fighting a war on 2 fronts, monsters on one side, heavily armed humans on the other, and the cast kept that twist buried the entire time. Then there's the secret they were sworn never to spoil. The cast spent 2 solid weeks rehearsing one massive battle outside the Hawkins library, designed to look like a single unbroken shot, with codenamed sections like Crossing and Massacre. That name is a clue. According to the visual effects supervisor who let it slip late in the press run, the fight ends in near total slaughter, wiping out the entire military presence and leaving basically just the kids standing among the dead. It quietly tells you the army never stood a chance, and the cast had to sit on that devastation for a very long time. Some secrets weren't about plot. They were about what these scenes actually cost. Will Byers' big, emotional monologue in the final season, the one that wrecked everyone, wasn't a normal day's work. Noah Schnapp revealed it was shot over a brutal 12-hour day, and then the production called him back a week later for another 12 hours of the exact same scene. That's a full day of holding the rawest, most vulnerable emotional state imaginable. He isolated himself for months beforehand just to stay in that headspace. The tears you saw weren't a quick acting trick. They were the end of an exhausting, months-long climb, and the crew kept how hard it was completely quiet. 11's powers, meanwhile, hit a very unglamorous reality. For much of the final season, she's sealed inside a sleek, sensory deprivation wetsuit. On screen, it looks heroic. Off-screen, Millie Bobby Brown says it was a confining nightmare. The costume designer had to secretly cut the collar and the mesh just so she could breathe. And because Brown was strapped into rigs and water tanks for such long stretches, the suit even had to be modified with a hidden opening so she could relieve herself without stopping the shoot. The glossy superhero image fans saw was, behind the scenes, hours of cramped, deeply uncomfortable confinement. Here's a lighter one. Max spends the final season in a hospital bed, in a coma, and to save time, the team shot every single hospital visit in one marathon day. Different cast members were rotated in and out, swapping costumes to fake the passing of days, all while Sadie Sink had to lie perfectly still in that bed for hours on end. And it worked a little too well. The sheer monotony got to her, and Sink genuinely fell asleep, completely unconscious, while her castmates performed emotional scenes right over her. The most convincing coma acting in the entire show was just an exhausted actress actually dozing off. And to film the end of the world, they secretly rebuilt the world. After the previous season tore Hawkins apart, fans assumed the crew would just go back to the real Georgia town they'd always used and add the damage digitally. Instead, the cast stayed quiet about something staggering. The production built a massive replica of the town's main street from scratch on a guarded soundstage and kept it frozen in apocalyptic ruin for the entire shoot. Even the creeping vines of the Upside Down were mostly real. The crew ran wires through painted pool noodles, and the production designer worked out that, laid end to end, those noodle vines would stretch 52 miles, $500 million of practical illusion hidden behind a soundstage wall. If you're enjoying pulling back the curtain on a show you thought you knew inside out, do us a favor and hit subscribe. We take apart the shows you love every week. Okay, back to the secrets they kept off camera. This next one is genuinely beautiful. When Millie Bobby Brown got married, the internet was convinced her on-screen dad, David Harbour, had officiated the ceremony. The cast happily let everyone believe it, because it made a perfect smokescreen. The truth? The man who actually married her, who held the license and wrote the vows himself, was Matthew Modine, the actor who played Papa, the cold, abusive scientist who tormented Eleven for years. The show's cruelest villain performed the most loving act imaginable for its lead, and called it one of the most beautiful weddings of his life. The fake dad rumor was the decoy, protecting the real, private moment. As filming wrapped, the cast pulled off a quiet little heist. Despite strict rules about studio property, nearly everyone walked off set with a piece of history. Noah Schnapp took his original bike from the very first season. Millie Bobby Brown grabbed vials of Eleven's fake nosebleed blood. Others made off with the Castle Buyer sign, the compass, the wrist rocket, and even a sword that reportedly upset the props department. Sadie Sink quietly walked away with a wardrobe jacket and called it an accident. After a decade together, the cast clearly decided some memories were worth pocketing, and the people in charge mostly looked the other way. And the cast had a lot less control over the story than they let on. As the end approached, several actors who'd lived in these characters for nearly 10 years started texting the creators their own ideas for how things should end. Noah Schnapp and the actor behind Vecna, Jamie Campbell Bower, both fired off suggestions for their characters. The creators mostly left them on read. Schnapp joked that he could pull up the receipts of all those unanswered messages. So while interviews painted a warm, collaborative writer's room, the reality was two creators holding the line on their own vision, politely ignoring even their biggest stars. They even hid where the show now takes place. For years, the beating heart of the series was Mike Wheeler's basement, but the cast was sworn to secrecy that in the final season, the basement is gone, abandoned. With the group hiding from those armed soldiers, they set up a new secret headquarters underneath the local radio station, complete with a glass DJ booth where Steve and Robin work the records and the sound effects. It quietly ages the characters up, out of a childhood basement and into the middle of a war. And here's the biggest gamble of all. These days, huge shows film fake endings, decoy deaths, multiple versions, all to throw off leakers. The cast let everyone assume they'd done exactly that. They hadn't. According to one of the younger actors, they only ever filmed the one true ending. There was no backup, no fake-out version sitting in a vault. That meant the creators were betting everything on their security holding, and it let the cast pour every ounce of emotion into the real goodbye, instead of faking it 5 different ways. One ending, one shot, no safety net. Before the last one, let's clear out the fakes, because the internet invented plenty. No, there was never a secret 9th episode. No hidden conformity gate finale waiting to reveal the whole ending was an illusion. The creators confirmed the season is exactly 8 episodes. That theory was basically lifted from an old video game conspiracy. No, David Harbour did not secretly officiate that wedding, no matter how many posts swore he did. That was the decoy, remember? It was Modine. And no, the creators did not use AI to rewrite the scripts after some rejected draft. The writers finished those scripts the old-fashioned way, and there's even an official published script book to prove it. Real secrets are documented. These were just wishful thinking, repeated until they sounded true, which leaves the heaviest secret of all. And one actor carried it for nearly a decade. From very early on, David Harbour was quietly told the truth about Eleven, that her story was, in his words, doomed. That no matter how hard his character fought, the girl he was trying so desperately to protect might never truly be safe. Sit with that for a second. Every scene where Hopper shields her, rescues her, builds her a home, was played by a man who already knew how it might end. While he stood in front of cameras selling a hopeful, happy story, he was quietly bracing for heartbreak. He fed the press the warm version on purpose, protecting the show's darkest truth right up until the finale aired. That's the real secret of this cast. They didn't just play these people for 10 years. They quietly carried their endings, smiling through every interview, holding the heaviest knowledge until the very last moment so that we could feel it for the first time. That's the thing about this show. The magic on screen was built on contracts, exhaustion, pool noodles, and a whole lot of secrets the cast guarded for years. So tell us, which of these caught you completely off guard? And which one did you somehow already suspect? Drop it below, and we'll see you in the next one.